Hey everyone, this interview is close to 2 years old and I wanted to make a video about it for the longest time, but I never got around to it. If you don't want to listen to me yap, I've linked the interview on my website in the description, but otherwise let's jump into it. When I started making Japanese videos on Instagram and got a little bit of a following, I wanted to use that quote-unquote credibility to interview manga artists. I speak Japanese fluently, and being a huge anime and manga fan, it seemed like a really cool potential opportunity. After many kind rejections from manga authors you've probably heard of, I finally got one yes. Yorima Ryo-sensei is the mangaka for many successful webcomics as well as serialized manga, and here are some of those works that you may have heard of. I spent a few days curating a set of questions that I thought would be insightful for others to read, and also meaningful for Yorima-sensei to answer. Starting off, I asked Yorima-sensei about the motivation behind choosing to become a manga artist. They explained that it all started in elementary school when they discovered monthly manga magazines, similar to how the weekly Shonen Jump, which you might have heard of, is a manga magazine with a weekly release. The idea of a story unfolding every month absolutely blew their mind, and ever since then, they've been hooked on the dream of creating manga. Assuming that the path of becoming a mangaka had not worked out, Yorima-sensei mentioned that they had a good experience in the role of a nursery teacher, so it's always interesting to learn about the path less traveled for manga artists. Then we talked about their early career. Yorima-sensei's first professional gig was illustrating for an art book called Jintai Dessan Akapen Tenkai Juku. This opportunity came through the vocational school they attended, and Yorima-sensei felt like it was a dream come true to see their illustrations appear in a published book. Naturally, every creator faces obstacles, so I was really curious about the toughest part of the job, whether it's the writing or drawing, or maybe some external influence. For Yorima-sensei, the most challenging aspect is originality and understanding how to progress the story further. They often had to redo storyboards or rough drafts, which could also be referred to as names in Japanese. One tip they received was to watch a lot of movies to spark new ideas, so they made it a habit to watch one movie a day. This wasn't too shocking to hear necessarily, but it's nice to reaffirm that artists take inspiration from many places. With more online platforms and social media, I wanted to see if Yorima-sensei felt like it was easier to break into the manga industry. Maybe unsurprisingly, sensei didn't necessarily think so. While social media offers more ways to showcase work, it also raises expectations and competition. But even still, getting recognized by fans online is a huge motivator for Yorima-sensei. This isn't that much different from YouTube, for example, where with the amount of content being uploaded on a daily basis, viewers have a greater expectation of high quality content, especially for long form videos where you might want to capture viewers' attention for longer. Let me know how I'm doing on that front, by the way. We also chatted about which anime or manga characters inspire them the most. Yorima-sensei is a big fan of a manga series called Kyou Kara Ore wa by Nishimori Hiroyuki, especially the humor and chemistry between characters. Yorima-sensei is most drawn to interesting relationships rather than focusing on any single standout character. Yorima-sensei has a special place in their heart for a manga they created called Uchi no Gaia wa Yurei desu. They felt particularly in tune with the characters, which made the entire creative process more enjoyable. And if you get a chance to read it, which I highly recommend, it definitely shows in the final product. I also wanted to use this opportunity to also ask about Yorima-sensei's personal tastes, not just as it relates to work. Yorima-sensei mentioned that as of late they're obsessed with a type of salad called choregi salad, which they eat every time they go out for a meal to avoid a stomachache. As for manga, Yorima-sensei highly recommends Witch Watch, which for those of you who didn't know, actually premiered its anime this year. In particular, Yorima-sensei loves the comedic, clumsy characters, and the daily mishaps within the show that keeps them hooked. Next, we dove into the creative process, and understanding a little bit more about how Yorima-sensei goes about creating a manga. Yorima-sensei often starts with a specific scene or two in mind, maybe something they can't wait to draw, and then they flesh out the rest of the story around those moments. We talked about how Yorima-sensei comes up with comedic scenarios. One example is this scene here, where the character of Natsume in one of Yorima-sensei's webcomics uses a roundabout way of saying the name of the boy she has a crush on while he's within earshot. Yorima-sensei believes that small flaws or minor deceit make characters more human and more lovable, which really comes through in all their works. Following a series of successful webcomics, Yorima-sensei began working on a serialized manga adaptation of a hit Vocaloid song called Shikabaneze about 2 years ago. Yorima-sensei was already a huge fan of the music, so when the chance to collaborate came via DM, it felt like a dream come true. Working from a pre-written script was new territory, but they were excited to tackle the challenge. Curious about their daily schedule, I asked Yorima-sensei how they balance everything. So most of their work happens in the evening until late at night. They juggle multiple tasks at once, and when they get stuck on one piece, they switch to another to keep the creativity flowing. One thing I noticed when reading Yorima-sensei's webcomics and manga is that they feature a lot of black-haired female characters with highlights, this, and I was curious if this was just coincidence or a pattern. They mentioned that while they used to like short or bright hair, they've grown fond of cool, dark hair with subtle pops of color, something that looks stylish and modern. Towards the end of our interview, I couldn't resist telling Yorima-sensei how popular their works are outside of Japan. I personally discovered their webcomics via the r/manga subreddit on Reddit. They were genuinely surprised and thrilled to hear that fans abroad are really into their manga, and hearing positive comments from overseas fans via social media keeps Yorima-sensei motivated to create more. Finally, Yorima-sensei offered some great advice for aspiring manga artists, although I do think this could apply to content creators in general, and their advice was, just finish your work and share it, whether it's on social media or with publishers. Feedback from readers is crucial, and sometimes we're our own worst critics. And there you have it. My conversation with Yorima Ryo-sensei was an eye-opening look into the mind of a talented mangaka who's truly passionate about storytelling. I hope this interview gave you an inside perspective on what it's like to create manga for both online platforms and serialized publications. Let me know what you thought of this video down below, and if you have any suggestions, I would love to hear them. Thanks again for watching, and see you on the next one.